Okay, hola, SAP developers. Welcome to this What's New in SAP HANA 2.0 SPS 08 expert session. So today it will be all about administration and monitoring. And for that, we have our experts, Jose, Gunit, Dan, and Diane. So welcome everyone, and over to you, Jose.
All right, thank you very much. And hello, everyone. My name is Jose Ramos, and I'm a member of the HANA product management team. And with me, I have a few other folks from the product management team that will be helping me with the presentation. I do want to confirm that everyone can see the slides, so please give me a thumbs up if you're still able to see the slides. Yes? All right, sounds good. Okay, excellent. Okay, so let's get started here. So let me go to the next slide. Just a second, I also want to move to the next slide. What's going on? There we go. Okay. There we are. So just the mouse was dragging a little bit. Okay, cool. So for today, what we're going to cover is we're going to go through the administration tooling for SAP HANA. And the tooling is obviously the HANA Cockpit, SP17, that's the version. And then we are going to look at new features overview. And then we're going to look at the administration and monitoring pieces, followed by the security pieces and the pieces for the database explorer. All right. Then we're going to move on. Let's check with the slides, or the slide is not moving. Let me just quickly make sure that it works over here. There we are. Okay, here we are. Yeah, that's good. So then we're going to move on to the other one over here. So it looks like there's some audio happening over here. So give me a second while I fix that. Just a second. Let's get that over here. Here we go. Okay. And let's make sure that everything's working here. Can you still hear me, by the way? Are you supposed to hear me? Okay, good. Okay, thanks. Sorry about that. Okay, cool. So let's go back over here. And sorry about that. Because I just lost my slides. Can you still see the slides? You can. Okay, just a second. Okay, sorry. There we are. You can, I could not. Now I can. All right. Okay, cool. So let's talk about the HANA Cockpit release strategy. And this is a slide that we show every time that we go through the new features. So I'm not going to go too much into detail, but suffice to say is that we are now at the far right here for SP17 of our HANA Cockpit version, which is a version that synchronizes with the HANA 2 SPS 08 release happening this month. And as always, that is the latest version of the cockpit. Any features are going into that version of the cockpit, and any patches are only available for that version of the cockpit. So for customers who are using older versions of the HANA Cockpit, we encourage you to go to the latest version of the software so that you can get the latest patches as well. All right. So let's go through as well some of the latest innovations that we've had in the past few slides, so for a few versions. I'm not going to go through all of them here. Basically, it's suffice to say that we continue to invest in the tooling in the HANA 2 SPS 08 is no different with the release of Cockpit SP17 of this year. And with that, let's go right into the new features. And this is the features that we're going to be covering. And we're going to go through the new features in the administration and monitoring topic, security, new features, as well as new features in the Database Explorer. And all of these encompass what is new in the administration and monitoring topic in HANA. All right. The first feature that we're going to talk about is support for the overarching theme. Oh, and by the way, we are going to be doing some demonstrations on some of the features as well. So stay tuned to see a live demo of those demonstrations. So if you look at this new feature here, this is just a UI feature. We are just updating the user interface to use the SAP Fiori Horizon theme. And if you're familiar with this theme, then you may know that there's 4 flavors of it, a couple of accessibility versions, as well as a dark and a light version. And you can do this by switching the theme in the appearance section of the Cockpit user settings. This will also, if you're familiar with this theme through other SAP applications, then this will give you a little bit of consistency between the different SAP applications, and the HANA Cockpit is no different. In the HANA Cockpit, we now have the ability to have template histories. Now, the templates in HANA Cockpit, as you may know, they are there so that you can save configuration parameters into templates, and then you can apply the templates, those configuration parameters, to other systems, on HANA systems. Now there's going to be a new page in that application that's called the View Change History that will allow you to see the history of those templates. So this is actually going to allow you to apply a template to a HANA database, and then you'll be able to see, using a status indicator, there's a column there called template status, whether the template that you're applying is up to date to a specific system, or whether the template you're going to be applying is already been applied to a system, but it happens to be out of date or outdated. Or if the template has not just been applied. So this gives you a really quick way to determine whether you need to apply a template to any systems that maybe you have, any new systems that you haven't actually done that, or that you can apply a template to a system where you knew you applied a template, but you know whether the template was updated or not. And this will give you a good way to do that. So there's a way for you to be able to apply those templates and see the history of the templates. We have now a multi-step wizard for table partitioning. And now with the Cockpit, you can apply 1 or 2 level partitioning into your HANA databases. So there's a number of possible scenarios for your table partitioning. So first level could be round robin, hash partitioning, range partitioning, and the second level could be the similar range hash partitioning. And this can be very useful for performance reasons, but also if you have a single node or scale out systems and your table contains more than the 1 billion raw records, then when that is reached, then you will want to partition the table. The way that this is invoked is you go to the table distribution and partitioning card in the HANA Cockpit, and then you'll see a table partition table menu item, and you can click on that, and that will take you to the partition table wizard. You go through the whole wizard, and then that's when you specify the first level partitioning, second level partitioning, and then you complete it, and then you'll have your partitioning done at that time. Something else that you can do that is new in the Cockpit SV17 is that you can edit an existing partition table. So you can change the specification for partition. If you have only 1 level partition, you can add a second level partitioning or remove it if you want. Or you can do a few other things as well from the existing partitioning. Then we have a functionality that allows you to display the replicas and table groups in the table distribution application. So this is how the screen looks like. I've actually cut parts of the screen and put them all together so I can explain what is happening here. But the way that it's displayed is as follows. If you have a table with no partitioning and no replica, you'll see the table just appear on a row. This is actually what you'd see already in the product. However, if you have a table that has partitioning, but there's no replica, then what you're going to see is a nested node that's going to show the partitioning, the table that is partitioned with a summary of the definition right underneath, where you actually can see the type of partitioning that happened. If you have a table that has partitioning, that has multiple table groups, but still, again, no replica, you're actually going to see a nested node, and underneath, you're going to see the different table groups that appear. And also, we're going to show you an indicator under the table group column that will tell you whether there's more than 1 table group. And if so, you're going to have a specific row for each table group name. Then if you have partitioning, but now you have multiple table group types, still a replica. Similarly, you're going to be able to see under the node the number of partitions in each individual rows, as well as an indicator whether there's one or more table group type. And now still with partitioning, no replica, but now you have multiple table groups and multiple table group types. You're going to see a similar type of screen with individual rows showing the separate rows showing the combination of the table group and the table group type. So a lot more information now that is displayed in the table distribution application. And the columns on the right-hand side will actually indicate whether the table has been partitioned or not partitioned. And if it's been partitioned, you're going to see where the partitions are depending on the host. All right, now let's take a look at what happens when you have replicas. So here is partitioning with the replica. You see a node, and then you're able to see the root node as well as information about the table group and what the replica node is or the name of it. It's going to be named synchronous replica. Unless you have a name, then the name will appear beside it. But this is how no partitioning with replica is going to look like. Now, if you have partitioning and you have multiple group types and you have a replica, then you're going to see a little bit more information. One thing that's important to note here is that whenever you have replicas, they have to have a different table group name than the table. Because if you don't do that, then the replica will be automatically deleted. So that's something that you need to be aware of. That way your replicas are not deleted and you don't know why. That would be the reason why. So make sure that they have different names. Then if we have a table with first level partitioning and with replica, then you're going to see the information appear as follows. And in here, the table name will be repeated, and that represents the table, a nested node, and underneath you're going to see the level of partitions. And then if you have a table with second level of partitioning and also with a replica, you're going to see similar type of information. On the columns on the right-hand side, again, they represent the different hosts for the replicas and for the nodes. And we're going to display the location of the table as well as the synchronous replica. You'll see that the synchronous replica with the SR label, and then in parentheses, you're going to see the number of partitions. And lastly, if you have a table that is partitioned, and if all partitions are in the same group, then they're going to appear in a single row, as you see over here. However, if the partitions are in different groups, then we're going to show you the table name. And then underneath, we're going to, in the table name, we're actually going to also give you the number of partitions. It's going to be, it shows up in parentheses as X of Y. You can see here on the screenshot, it says partitions in different groups. It says 9 of 22 on the first one and 12 of 22 on the second one as examples. So the first number denotes the number of partitions in the current group, and the second number denotes the total number of partitions across all the groups. So at a glance, a lot of information that is now being presented when it comes to table distribution. And we know that when you set or configure a HANA system with table partitioning, then there's a lot of combinations, a lot of ways to see that. And we hope that with what we have implemented in the HANA Cockpit, it at least gives you a good idea of the status or how your specification is of table distribution. All right, let's move on over here. So let's look at some HCI administration new features. So now we can have a schema privilege and schema roles in HCI administration. So what this means is that if you are an HCI administrator, you can now manage the schema privileges and the schema roles for the container. So you can grant and revoke the schema privileges and roles. And again, this is only for containers, not container groups. The functionality is provided according to the privileges of the user that's running the application. So as an HCI administrator, you need to have certain privileges. So make sure you have those. Otherwise, you won't be able to do this functionality. And a similar privilege role information is displayed also from the users and roles tab, which is what you see on the upper left. There's a couple of tabs there. You're going to see the same information depending on no matter which tab you are. Then if we look at the screenshot on the right-hand side, you can also grant and revoke HDI common privileges. Now, in the previous version, you could do that, but that was actually implicitly done. It was actually done automatically for you. But now it's possible for you to grant and revoke those HDI common privileges because you don't need common privileges for all the users. And in fact, you can remove common privileges if you want as well from the UI. And that's what you see over here, where some users have all the common privileges. Some of them have a partial number of privileges, which could be there for historical reasons, or none of them. So that is possible for HCI administration. All right. Now we move on to the database audit log. We now have improved filtering for the export of the log, so where you can define a precise time range and pick specific fields when you're downloading the audited log entries. So this is going to offer a more fine-grained experience where the users can choose to export only the relevant information that they want. So specific columns you can export, as well as very specific time range up to the second. In the database information tab or application in HANA Cockpit, you can now export all the details that you see that as a CSV file. So this can be handy in case you need to provide information to our support team, or you want to do some debugging or compare a couple of systems. This will allow you to very easily just export all those detailed informations of your HANA system and then review the information or send it off to our teams for if you need support. From an NSE perspective, we can now define any recommendation rules for the NSE advisor. So now you can customize and filter those recommendation rules for a schema, a table, a partition ID, a column. And we also are introducing the ability to omit or not perform any of the advice that is given for particular schema tables and so on. And you do this by setting the advice mode to none when you are editing this configuration. So the ability to define recommendation rules in an NSE advisor now, it's something that we are enhancing the NSE advisor with. And the NSE advisor has been around for quite some time now. So now we continue to enhance that particular piece. The plant trace application, in there, you can now include your DML queries. Previously, you can only include select statements. Now you can include all of the DML queries. So insert, update, and delete in addition to select. And this allows you to pretty much widen the type of query that you can analyze for performance and improvement in the plant trace. You're no longer restricted to select statements. You can now use all of the DML queries when you are looking at the plant trace. In the plant's stability application, there's a new option there that allows you to download the query execution plan based on the Capture Abstract SQL plan, the ASP. Previously, this was not done. You would only download the plan, the latest executed plan for the query, but sometimes you need to consider the ASP just because sometimes the query that runs the plan might be different, even though it's the same query. And then you may find some performance degradation depending on the situation. So you may want to go back to the Abstract SQL plan. And now you can actually download the query execution plan based on that Capture ASP. It's actually a PLV file that you can download, and you can open that up with the tool later on. All right, let's look at a few security features before we break into our demos. So the first one here is there's a new application for failed authentications. This will allow you to visualize all the failed authentications along with the reason why the failure occurred. And if the failure happened because of a certificate collection, identity provider issue, a database user issue, then you're going to get a link to go to the corresponding application. That way you can fix that from within this application and navigate to the right or the appropriate application from here. We are also able to restrict the connections for user groups based on a range of IPs or based on an application. So this will allow you to create or change or delete an IP allow list for user groups, as well as restrict the application that can connect to the database from a user that's within a user group. And this will provide more fine granular control over the security configuration settings. And this will allow you to do things like segregation of duties or do that a little bit better. We also have the ability to automatically create LDAP-based users for SAML and JWT providers. So HANA can use LDAP users already. However, it's unable to automatically create them. So this will hopefully save you a lot of time, because now the database will be able to create those users based on what you have on LDAP. That way you don't have to do that manually on your own. And this is something that when you create a new user and you add an identity provider, you're able to see that. And that's what you see here on the screenshot, a couple of options to enable the automation or automatic creation of the user, and then go from there. And the last one over here is that we also provide a guided setup wizard for JWT and SAML-based single sign-on. This is really a new wizard that is there to assist you in setting up all the prerequisites that are needed when you are setting up JWT or SAML single sign-on. You need to have the certificate admin and trust admin privileges to run the wizard. And I'm going to just show you some screenshots with about the wizard for SAML, and then the demo will show you how to do it with JWT. But in essence, you select a name for your identity provider. Then you select where the metadata is. In the case of SAML, it's an XML file. So you upload that XML file, and then based on the XML file, then you continue with the wizard. If you have a couple of identity providers, then you get to choose which provider, which metadata to use. After that, you can provide some additional settings, such as the mappings and specifications. Then you can provide the name of the certificate collection. And then you provide where the you tell it where the certificate what its certificate is. Once that is done, you review the information, and then you are done. So 5 or 6 step wizard that allows you to set up JWT and SAML when you're using single sign-on. In the past, you would have to do this manually or via SQL. Now there's a wizard for that. All right, and with that, I'm going to turn it over to Gonit to do the demonstrations.
Thank you, Jose. I'm just going to go ahead and share my screen. Okay, I hope everyone can see that. So welcome to the Cockpit SP17 demo. Today we're going to go over some of the features that have been released that Jose already spoke about. So first things first, when you're viewing any of the pages on the new Cockpit, you'll realize a significant improvement in the UI. So if you go to the top right corner here, you're able to see a drop-down menu. So in the settings, you can actually change the appearance to whatever you like based off your preferences. You can choose a darker mode or the accessibility ones as well if that is needed. So now moving on to some of the other features related to administration and monitoring. The first one that we're going to cover is related to configuration templates. And to get to that feature, you should be at the home page, and you can click configuration templates under the manage landscape on the left there. So that open up configuration templates and open up the test template I actually created for this demo. You can see the main page for the template. So the new features, as mentioned already, are related to the ability to apply to a database and see the changes there, and also the view change history, just to see any changes that have occurred within this template. So first we have to apply to databases. You can see here that in the past, this template has been applied to the second database from the top, and you can see it's up to date, which basically means there's been no changes to the template after it's been applied to this database. And if you go to preview, you usually also can see the differences. You can see that, again, there's no differences here because the template has not been changed. But here, if you go to the first one, you can see that there is a difference between the two. And there'd be many more here if there's other parameters within that template as well. So I'm going to go ahead and add a parameter actually to show you the way that the change history works. So I'm just going to pick a random one here. I click this one, I click add. You can see that's been added here. And if I go to the view change history, you can see the history of the entirety of the template. Today is the 25th of November, and you can see that I just have added this JW to identity provider. And you can see the value for it and also the change type. So if you edited something, you've created something, added or deleted, this will all be shown here as well as I just mentioned, with the change time. Now, if we go back, you see I've changed the template after. So if I go to apply to databases, it is now outdated because the template has been changed. And if we go to preview, there will be a difference with the way that it is. Okay. Now that we've concluded the template part of the demo, so this feature, I'm going to move on to the next feature here. And for that, I'm going to a particular database. So the next one we have here is manual table partitioning. And to navigate to this feature, or to any feature actually, you can go to the search bar and you can search for it, or you can scroll down to it within the cards. So this is in the table distribution and partitioning card here. So if you click the three dots there, there's another menu that opens up and you click partition table. This leads us to the table partitioning tab here, and you can see all the partitioning that is already done. You can see SBook, the table here, has already done specification level 1 partitioning. The type is hash, and it was done on book ID as the column. And so I'm going to pick just another one here, and each time you click any of the tables, the partition table button shows up on the right-hand side there. And if you click it, a new wizard, step-by-step wizard shows up to take you through the entire process. So the first level specification, there's three options you have there. You have hash, range, and round robin. So round robin is grayed out here because it's only allowed for tables without a primary key. So that's something to keep in mind that happens so that the table that I've chosen here does have a primary key, so that I cannot choose that. So I'm going to stick with hash partitioning there, and I'm going to click the number of partitioning as 3, let's say. You can choose any other number there if you'd like, depending on your needs. And just something else to keep in mind is that it is recommended to have at least one of the primary key columns selected. Here it's a multi-select. I can choose more than one. I'm just going to stick with one for now. And there's also an optional second level partition that you can do, and you can turn that on from the toggle from the bottom left corner there. I'm going to click next step, and now I'm now in the second level partitioning. I can choose it to be hash or range. I'm going to choose range just to show you how that works as well. And I'm going to click one of the columns there. Now let's click next step. So for the ranges, it's slightly different now. You can choose your partitioning ranges. So what you'd like to partition on here, you can do a single value. So when it's equal to a particular value there, you can do it for a range. And then all others that do not follow into single value or range will be falling under the others partition. You can dynamically choose to split that as well. And there's multiple options there. So for example, you can split it in a new range once it reaches 10 million, or you can change that value there as well according to your needs. I'm going to turn that off for now. And then I'm going to choose a range here. So if I do, like, for example, I can do 0 to 100. I click add. Now there's two partitioning there, 0 to 100, and all else would fall in the others. You can also add a single value. So I can also pick, let's say 200. I add that, and now I have 3 partition ranges for the range second level specification. Now I click next step. You can choose where the partitioning will be placed, and you can edit that here. I'll leave it as the default for now. And I click review. You can go back and edit any of the steps if you'd like here. And I'm going to click partition table. I'm happy with what I have. And this is completed fairly quickly because the table that I've chosen is relatively small. If your table is larger, it can take 30 minutes, it can take an hour, it can just take a significantly long time compared to what the couple of seconds this table took me. If you click this arrow, you can see now that you have the second level partitions on hash. You have 3 partitioning there on the column, the man DT column, and same thing with the range. And you have it on seats max. If you go to the table partitioning, you can now see it there, specification level 1 and 2. Let's say I would like to maybe merge them back, or I'd like to repartition. You can click the partition table again, and at the bottom you can choose to repartition or merge the partitions. Again, large tables can be locked for a long time in this case. I'm going to click merge, and this happened fairly quickly because the table is smaller. And that is it for the table partitioning. Again, just to reiterate, the benefit is that you can improve performance with partitioning, and you can also handle the situation where your table might have more than 2 billion rows, as there is a limit. So now I'm going to go back to the database overview page to show the next feature here. So next one that we're going to speak about is the ability to actually configure filter rules for the NSC, so the Native Storage Extension Advisor. To get to this, you can click the three dots here. Another menu will show up. I click Configure NSE Advisor, and you can see there's a pop-up or a dialog that shows. And here you're able to add, delete, or edit, and also filter any of the recommendation rules. So I'm going to choose to add one just as an example. Once you click the schema, and you can also click the search icon, it'll show you all the schemas within this database. If I click one of them, it will next is the table. And now it'll show you all the corresponding tables for this schema. I'll click airport for that. And then you have two options. You have your column or partition ID. If this table and schema, this table is partitioned, it will show partition IDs. As you can see for the one above, there were partitions, so I chose partition ID number 1. For this one, it has not been partitioned, so that's not relevant. And there's also a drop down for all the columns within it. I can click time zone, and then you can choose the wildcard. There's two options. There's really no difference within them, but sometimes the names for the schemas, tables, and columns may include such wildcard characters already, which could lead to conflicts, and then you can choose the other one, which is not a part of the name. So I'll click one of them here. And then you have the advice mode. You can click any and none. And as we've already mentioned, if none is selected, you will not be getting advice for this rule. If I click OK, those should be saved. And now I should have 3 recommendation rules here. I only really have 3, but you can have many more. And in that case, filtering would be very helpful. So if I click advice mode there, I can filter by advice mode. So any or none. So let's say I want to filter by none. Click OK. Now you can only see 2 of them out of the 3, and you can also choose to delete one if you'd like. And now that one would be deleted. And so this, what it does is it really helps you limit the scope and be able to edit and configure the NSC recommendations to the way that you would like. Okay, so now we've covered some of the administration and monitoring features there. I'm going to move on to some of the security features. And just to get there, I'm going to go back to the database overview page, and we're going to touch on the JWT identity providers. So as mentioned, it's very similar for SAML, but I'm going to go over one of them because as they are the guided identity provider creation, it's very similar for both. So I'm going to go over just the one today. So for this, you have to click the guided provider creation at the top right. Once I click that, now there's a step-by-step guided provider creation that I can do. So I can pick a name here. I'm going to just do test for demo. Let's say the name, go on to step 2. So now I choose the issuer URL here. I'm going to just copy one over. Click step 3, and now you can choose the priority. So what the priority here is, it determines the order in which identity providers with the same issuer URL are checked when an incoming token is mapped to identity provider in SAP HANA. The identity provider with the highest priority is checked first, and then you can also specify the identity claim here. I can click, for example, email. It's basically the token that's used to map to the SAP HANA database user to an external user. So now we have, you can also choose whether this is going to be case sensitive. I'll leave it as yes. And now you can click step 4. So now you can choose to add any additional claims. I can choose to maybe family name. You can add more claims here if you'd like. Now moving on to step 5. So this would be the certificate collection name. I'm going to leave it as is. And these would be the public keys for this identity provider for the JWT OpenID configuration. If you click review, you can see all the steps here. You can go back and edit anything if you'd like. I'm going to just click create. And now the following steps were successful. So it shows you a little summary. And now you can see the new identity provider has been created there. So now for user authentication for using SAML or JSON Web Token, so JWT certificates, you must create identity provider in SAP HANA. And so this makes it a lot easier for you to be able to do that. And so next, and our final feature that I'll be showing within this demo is also a security-related feature. It's the ability to define IP or app-specific connect restrictions for user groups. So to get to that feature, I'll scroll all the way down. So in the user role and management on the left-hand side, you can click user group management. Now you can see all your user groups here. If I click test, so this is a user group that I've created here, you can see all the users within this group. You can also move users to this group, create a new user and add it to this group, or you can remove test users from this group if you'd like. So what we will be speaking about in particular is the connect restrictions that would be applied to all the users within this group. So in our case, just the one, just a test user. So if I click add restriction here, you are able to add a connect restriction. So what that does is now the IP addresses that I add will be allowed to access this user group, or so any users within this group, and or any applications that I allow here. So I'm going to just add a restriction name. I'll just call it restriction. You have an option to enable or disable it. I'll keep it enabled for now. You can add a certain IP address. This would be IP addresses that are allowed to connect to this user group. If you just enter 9, for example, that's not a valid IP address and it will not allow you to save that. You can also add an application, so a particular application name, and choose for it to be allowed or denied. I'll do allowed for now, and I'll just call it, for example, app1. This is just for demonstration purposes that there's a certain app called app1 that will now be allowed to connect to this user group. So if I click save, we have a new restriction there. You can edit it at the top right corner, you can delete it, or you can validate it. What validate does is that it lets you know if a particular IP address or application name will be able to connect to this user group. You can leave it empty to basically use the current connection defaults. If I click validate, you can see the IP address I'm currently using and the application name. You can show that this restriction does not allow connection there. And the reason being is that it's being denied by the application. So that's the way that you can test your restrictions as you create them. Now I can actually show you that this test user will not be allowed to access this database. So if I go back to the database directory, I'll try switching the authentication and you'll be able to see that this will not be able to connect here. Just enter the credentials. And you can see it says invalid credentials. So this is what occurs when I have some sort of connect restriction in place for that test user group. And that brings me to the end of the demo. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you were able to follow along, and I'm going to hand it over to the team for the rest of the presentation.
Perfect. Thank you, Ganeet, for that presentation. And now I'll share my screen. Hi, everyone. I'm Dan Patel, Product Manager with the SAP HANA team, and I will be presenting the SAP HANA Database Explorer new feature overview for the SPS 08 release. Here I aim to showcase some of the new features and their uses, which are now available in the SAP HANA Database Explorer. The SAP HANA Database Explorer is a versatile database management tool designed to allow users to navigate and work with their database objects effectively, all from one tool. It not only allows users to execute SQL, explore schemas, and import and export data, but it includes functionality such as security, so secure authentication, authorization, and connections that ensure data protection and privacy, error analysis and diagnosis that allows users to run tracing on their databases and debug database queries, and performance optimization, giving users the ability to analyze their SQL statement and SQL script procedures and functions. To learn more about the current version of SAP HANA Database Explorer you're using, select the info button on the top right of the page to discover the newest features and updates. Click on the help icon beside it. The SQL results viewer offers a variety of viewers for various data types, such as HTML, XML, JSON, images, binary files, and spatial data. The images here now display the spatial viewer, which has been enhanced to support multiple values and display details, making it easier to quickly visualize spatial content stored in the database. To use this new feature, execute a SQL statement in the SQL console of the Database Explorer to select the spatial data you wish to visualize. In the results table, select the column with the binary data for all the spatial data you wish to visualize. Then select the View Spatial Data icon. In this example, we are currently viewing multiple SD geometry values associated with the SAP Waldorf office buildings stored in our database. Another viewer now available is the JSON collection viewer. Users can now view the JSON stored in the JSON document store without needing to manually query it from the SQL console. They can simply navigate to JSON collections in the left navigation, select the desired store, and right-click to find the View JSON feature. The JSON displayed is formatted to match the hierarchy of the JSON objects and allows users to filter the results using the row filter tool at the top of the page. This feature enables easy navigation through the JSON entries and the ability to generate SQL statements, providing quick access to view and update the contents of a JSON collection. With the new SAP HANA Job Scheduler, you can now create and manage jobs for recurring or even one-time tasks with the internal job scheduler directly from the Database Explorer. For example, users can schedule data backups or Delta backups to run without supervision at specific intervals. The tool allows users to easily navigate and view scheduled jobs and their associated metadata, providing a quick way to enable, disable, and delete jobs as needed without having to navigate outside the Database Explorer. To create a new job, users can use the Create Scheduler Job command. To learn more about the SAP HANA Job Scheduler, follow the link to the SQL reference guide. The SAP HANA Data Lake files is one component of the SAP HANA Data Lake, which serves as a cold data store. Data Lake files can be used to store and access unstructured data, such as image files and PDFs, and structured data, such as CSV, Parquet, and Delta table files, allowing for easy management and retrieval of not frequently accessed data. Previously only available to hyperscalers and other cloud storage providers, you can now use the Import and Export wizard to import and export to Data Lake files. So available in the Import Export Data wizards, Import Export Catalog Object wizards, and Import Esri shapefiles. For more information and a step-by-step guide on how to use this feature, navigate to the tutorial linked in the slide. When importing or exporting data or catalog objects, users now have the option to use a component-specific credential. If users choose to use a credential, it must already exist and have the component SAP HANA Import Export. Users are now no longer required to enter a secret key each time an import or export operation is performed. This aims to provide a secure and more flexible way to manage credentials during the import and export process. The second screenshot we see on the right side here now is the secret key approach. The SAP HANA Database Explorer extension for Visual Studio Code offers a convenient way to execute SQL queries and browse schemas without leaving your development environment. The SAP HANA Database Explorer for Visual Studio Code extension contains similar functionality to the web-based SAP HANA Database Explorer, although not all functionality is available. This extension can connect to both on-premise and SAP HANA cloud databases, making it versatile for various setups. Additionally, local connections do not require a XSA or Cloud Foundry login, simplifying the process. The tool offers an elegant user interface where you can navigate your database objects, perform searches, and easily filter through results as seen in the image to the right. The extension allows you to import and export SQL files to and from your computer. SQL files that are stored on the file system can also be incorporated into Git so that file sharing for collaborative work is significantly easier. For full functionality, you can always open the web-based SAP HANA Database Explorer. The Object Dependency Viewer provides a visual representation of database objects and their dependency hierarchy. This makes it easier to understand information that would otherwise be available only in tabular form. The viewer displays a graph structure that shows the dependency chain of the tables, views, and stored procedures, providing a clear and intuitive way to see how different objects are related. This feature has additional options, including setting a root object, type filter, and specifying graph depth. The graphical visualization of the dependencies is only available in the VS Code extension for the SAP HANA Database Explorer, while the cloud version has its own dependency viewer, which represents the relationship more in a tabular format. To learn more and get started with the SAP HANA Database Explorer, make sure to check out the in-depth, step-by-step tutorial group. Get started with the SAP HANA Database Explorer by using the link in the slides or navigating to the SAP Tutorial Navigator and searching for SAP HANA Database Explorer. Thank you guys for listening. That's it for the slides I had. I'm going to hand it over to Dan now for the demo.
Thanks, Dion. That was very clearly explained. Let me share my screen and get started with the demo. Okay, so I'm going to demonstrate a few of the select features that Dion had shown. The first one will be the scheduled jobs. Let's get into that. So first of all, I'm going to double check the time that we're currently at here. So I want to schedule my job into the future. So let's select 1 minute in the future. And you can see that a new scheduled job has been scheduled here. So let's just quickly look at what the syntax here looks like. So I've created a new scheduled job. Essentially, it's going to schedule the calling of a stored procedure called a reservation generator. And it's going to call it with a number of parameters, or a set parameter, which is number of reservations to generate, which is 10. And it passes it in a cron string. So it's going to occur on any Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday within the month of November. And then I want it specifically to be run at this particular time. So hopefully that's currently right now. So we'll see the result of its run. And I also want to limit it to be run from today until the end of the month. I've also given it a comment. And yeah, let's take a look at it. So I'll open it up now. And here we can see we now have a viewer. As Dion had mentioned, you're able to sort of delete the stored procedure here or open it. You're able to disable the stored procedure or disable the scheduled job or enable it, as well as see various properties about the scheduled job. So we can see that it's currently scheduled for the next run of this, which would be tomorrow. And that if we look at the history, we can see that it is currently run just right now. And we can see what the parameters for it were. I do want to say that if you want to instrument your stored procedure to maybe put some more details about the particular run of it, you can do that through maybe inserting into a table values about what the stored procedure had done. So here, if I select star from my generator logs file again, I can see that 10 more entries were generated into my reservations table. So it's just some sample data. Okay. Moving to the second feature, I'm going to go to export into data lake files. So I've got a set of tables here. I might choose one of them, such as this reservation table, and choose that I want to export its data. So I can choose to export the data to the various hyperscalers, or I can now choose data lake files, which is a component of SAP HANA Cloud. And I can do so using a database credential. So when I want to connect to my data lake files instance, it's done through X509 certificates, and I've stored those certificates that I want my database here, or this command to run. It's stored within this credential. So let me jump to, just resize this a little bit so I can jump between tabs. Okay, good enough. So if I come back to, this is now within HANA Cloud Central for my HANA Cloud instance, and I can see that I already have a data lake instance has been created. If I didn't have one, I could hit the create button here and quickly choose to do so. In this case, if I go to manage its configuration, I can see that this data lake files instance has already been configured for X509 certificates. So I've got a CA, a trust authority here configured, and I've specified sort of the pattern of the certificates that are allowed to connect to my data lake files instance. So I've specified that any certificate that's been signed by that CA, but also the certificate has to be for the water employees of SAP in the Waterloo office. Okay, so this is where I'm going to export the data to. First thing that I need, now that it's all been configured, is to copy the REST API endpoint, which I'll do. I'll jump back into my wizard. I can put in the REST API endpoint. So this is again, the data lake files instance that I want to export to. A path for the file, I'm going to call it res3.csv. And again, I'm specifying it's a CSV file. If I want to include the column names as the first row in the exported CSV file, if I wanted to change the way that the data was being exported, I could do that, but I'll just leave these all as default. I'll choose export. You can see that my export has succeeded. So if I jump back into HANA Cloud Central, I could then open up my Database Explorer, which I already have open here. And again, this is the Database Explorer running in HANA Cloud. It has the ability to connect to my data lake files instance, and I can browse the files in this particular directory. I can see that I've just exported this file here, which is res3.csv. I can choose to open that file, see the data. I could select multiple files and delete them. I could upload a new file or download a particular file, and so forth. Okay, so this just provides, again, another option for you for when you want to export your data, another location that you're able to export it and import it to. And I'm going to just jump over here quickly. These are just a few more examples, just using SQL. So again, the feature was the support within the export and import wizards, but they're also just using this underlying SQL as well. And as I mentioned, you need to use a credential. So if we look at this, you can see that the credential specified here is data lake files, and here's the SQL that was used to create that particular credential. So it requires a personal security environment, a PSE. So that's the first step that you do, is to create it. You specify the certificates that are going to be within it, certificates that you'll use to connect to the data lake files instance. And there it is. As Dion had mentioned, there is a tutorial that goes step by step into the details of how to create that setup. Okay, the final thing that I wanted to demonstrate was Visual Studio Code in the Database Explorer. So if I look in my directory here, I've got two different files. I can open VS Code, and I can see that it's opened up to the files. If I click on one of these files to open them, they're just opened as a straight text file. So what I want to do, sorry, again, I'm just going to resize this so I can see the full part of my screen. What I want to do is I want to install the Database Explorer extension into Visual Studio Code so that these will open within the SQL console. So let me look for the Database Explorer. And I can choose to install this. And it's going to take this icon, and I will see a new extension be added here on the left once it's been installed. And there it is. Let me just close this. And now, similarly, I can add a new connection to various databases. I can connect to an SAP HANA Cloud instance, or I can connect to an on-premise instance. And I happen to have a HANA Express instance here running locally, so I will connect to that. I'm going to set a schema filter and connect. And now I'm able to locally, from within my Visual Studio Code, I can see the different tables and stored procedures and views within my HANA database. If I now go back to my files view, if I open up one of these files, I now will open with a SQL console, so it recognizes that the Database Explorer has been installed, and I can now run these queries after I again select what database I want to run them against. So here we go. I've got the different SQL queries, multiple tabs. I can see the messages, so I can see information about how long it took to run the query, how much memory was used, and I can see a history. A couple of other features that I want to highlight here. If I open up a second query here, I can also split the editors. So I can have one SQL console on the left and one SQL console on the right. So if you're trying to do side by side, maybe changing things slightly and rerunning them, you can kind of work with two different tabs open side by side, which is nice. And it's also fully themable, so I can go to the themes and change to any of these different color themes that I might want to use. Okay, and then the last item here that I wanted to highlight is that if I take a particular table, such as the customers table, I can open this in the dependency viewer. And let me just make this a little bit bigger. And I've specified a sort of a base object, which is going to be my customer table. And you can see how all its relationships to other objects, which is, and I'm just going to reduce this down to not show certain items here. Apply that change. And then I'll make this bigger. Okay, so here we can clearly see that I've got my base object, and I can see the relationship visually now between it and other objects that use it within the database. So I can see that there's a table called reservations that has a foreign key to my customer table. I have a function here that makes use of both the customer table and the reservation table. And I have a view here that makes use of customers and reservations as well. Okay, so with that, that concludes the demo. And at this point, I would like to pass over the mic to my colleague Jose for any concluding words. And yes, let me do that.
Sounds good. Thank you very much, Dan. And also thank you, Diane and Gunit, for the great presentation and demos. So let me go back and sharing my screen over here. Or okay, you can just stay here. That's great. Thank you, Dan. All right. So the last slide over here is what do you want to do if you want to learn more about HANA or in this particular HANA Cloud as well. So there's a lot of information in sap.com for HANA Cloud. And also you can follow us on our YouTube channel and our SAP community as well. If you do want to get involved, we do have a customer influence website where you can go and submit requests for both HANA Cloud and on-premise, as well as sign up for any engagements that we have for upcoming functionality. So also a lot of good stuff that you can take advantage of, especially if you're looking to have your journey of migrating your on-premise HANA systems to the cloud as well, or running in a hybrid mode as well. We always encourage folks to try to get to our latest and greatest technology. All right, so with that, we are at the end of the presentation. Thank you very much for listening. We hope that you found the content valuable and that you found the demos instructive. So at this point, I will turn it over to Antonio to conclude the call.
Okay, that was a very interesting session. Thank you very much for sharing all this knowledge with us. I see that you've addressed the questions in the chat, so we don't have any pending questions there, and we can just wrap it up. So thank you everyone that joined the live event, and well, just a reminder there are a few more sessions coming in this. What's new in SAP HANA 2.0 SPS 08 expert sessions. So keep an eye on them. And that's it. Thank you very much, Jose, Dan, Diane, and Gunit for joining. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay, so I basically